Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, with one of the craziest games that we have ever seen. As I said, drop your questions, drop your comments in. We will get to all of them, I promise. But we got to start with the unbelievable top 5 game in Tuscaloosa. And when I think about this game, listen, I think about it like everybody else does, right? Game opens, Alabama jumps out to a lead, then Alabama scores again, then Alabama scores again. And what was wild was we all kind of had the same takes. Middle of the first quarter, end of the first quarter, second quarter. It's like, oh my God, not only is the dynasty not dead, they might be better than ever. They're unbelievable. They are running Georgia out of the building. And we all had our takes and we all had our tweets and we were all sharing with friends and talking about whatever, doing whatever. And then all of a sudden halftime hits. Kalen DeBoer maybe takes his foot off the gas a little bit. We're going to discuss that. Georgia cuts the lead. It was what, 28-0 at one point, 30-7 at the half. 33-15 late in the third going into the fourth. Then it's 33 to whatever. Then they score again. Then they score again. Then all of a sudden you look up and Georgia out of nowhere, they were trailing 28-0, 30-7 at the half. They're up 34-33 with what? About two and a half minutes to go. From there, Jalen Milroe gets the ball back and we all know what happens from there. He throws it up. Ryan Williams, the unbelievable freshman, comes down with it. The spin, the twist, the break off, the separation. One play, 75-yard drive, 13 seconds. We haven't seen 13 seconds go by that quick since Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen in the NFL playoffs a few years ago. But Alabama gets the go-ahead score. Zabian Brown, obviously the true freshman defensive back, gets the interception to seal the victory. And Alabama wins a thriller 41-34. And so I want to go ahead and dive into this one from all angles. First of all, listen, the obvious stuff, it goes without saying, right? The stats are incredible. If you're not an Alabama fan, to see Alabama not miss a beat with Kalen DeBoer taking over for Nick Saban, that's obviously terrifying. We shared the stat that he is now 109-12 as a head coach. He is now 6-0, by the way, against Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, and Dan Lanning. But I think the other stat that kind of blew people away when they saw it, since the start of the 2021 season, Georgia has played 51 games. They are now 48-3 with all 3 losses to Alabama. They are 1-3 against Alabama during that stretch. Oh, by the way, 47-0 since the start of the 2021 season in games not featuring Alabama. So we're going to talk about Georgia in a second, but I want to start from the Bama side because when I actually look at this game, I think the win was more impressive than you think, and not just because it's Georgia, top 5 matchup, Kalen DeBoer's first SEC game, whatever. It's more impressive because I think the more that I reflect back on the game, it was a more kind of convincing, if you will, Alabama win than maybe people are giving it credit for, right? I don't want to dismiss what Georgia did, coming all the way back from 28-0 down to take a 34-33 lead. But when I think about this game, I'm told it's this instant classic and it was maybe the 2 best teams in college football. I didn't see that, certainly from the Georgia perspective. We're going to discuss that in a minute. But instead, what I saw was a couple things that make me convinced that maybe this Bama win was a bit more impressive than a lot of people realize and a lot of people give credit for. I want to welcome a new sponsor to the Aaron Torres pod, Blue Chew. Fellas, remember back in the day when you were always ready to go? Well, things change. You got a lot on your mind. Your football team isn't very good. Well, here's the good news. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in chewable form. To get started, it's so easy. Just go to BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. No awkward trip to the doctors, no waiting at the pharmacy, no stink eyes, no raised eyebrows, nothing. Thing is, though, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, Torres, does it actually work? Do you think I need to try it? Well, here's the deal. Try it for a month for free, and I think there will be no turning back, all right? You'll love it. Your partner is going to love it. Your football team may stink, but you'll be rocking like the 85 Bears between the sheets. So go ahead, try it out, and here is the great news. We have a special offer for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. You can try Blue Chew for free when you use the code Torres at checkout. All you got to do is pay $5 in shipping. Go to bluechew.com, use promo code Torres at checkout. You get Blue Chew for free for a free month, and you only have to pay $5 shipping. Again, visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. Thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring the Aaron Torres podcast. First off, we know they were up 28-0. That's not a secret. We know they were up 30-7 at halftime, okay? Same time, what cannot be disputed. Yes, Georgia deserves credit for the comeback, but for whatever reason, and maybe Kalen DeBoer addressed it after the game, he did let his foot off the gas. Like you know, other people will sit there and say, oh, no, it's not that, and da-da-da. No. He let his foot off the gas, okay? Alabama was up 30-7. I looked it up, okay? 2 of their first 3 possessions of the second half was run, pass, incompletion, punt. So that's not ideal. But again, it's a coach with at one point 28-0 lead, 37 lead, even at one point 33-15. And I think he's just trying to chew up the clock, get out of there. But they didn't take very much time off the clock, right? So I mean, you have a situation where I don't think that Georgia was all of a sudden fundamentally significantly better than Alabama in the second half of that game. What I do think is that you had a situation where Alabama, they just kept not being able to sustain drives. For fun, I looked it up. Even if you include the touchdown drive to end the game or to take the lead with whatever it was, a minute to go, Alabama only had 1 drive the entire second half that took up more than about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So, yes, Georgia made the comeback, but Alabama, I don't want to say they made it easy on them, but Alabama could not sustain drives in the second half, and I thought the play calling got conservative. I'm not blaming Kalen DeBoer. I'm just saying that's a fact. To the other thing, like I saw all this, oh, my God, Carson Beck, this, that, Georgia's amazing. Again, we'll talk about Georgia here momentarily. But here's the other reality of that game, is that part of the reason that Georgia was able to make a comeback, they were basically in a 2-minute offense, and they were basically, oh, by the way, on top of it in 4-down territory the entire second half of the game, okay? 5 fourth-down attempts, 5 fourth-down conversions. They basically started going for 2-point conversions after scores every single score of the second half. And so I just bring it up because, yeah, there were 2 different competing things that led to 2 different results. And then on top of that, what do you have? One team that scored quickly in the first half in Alabama and then can't sustain drives in the second half. The defense was worn out by the end of the game. So I don't know if this sounds like I'm making excuses for Bama. I just think the win, because Georgia rallied back, I think people are underselling that this was kind of more one-sided than I think a lot of people realize. I don't think Georgia played a great game. I don't think Bama played a great game either, but don't think we should diminish what Bama did getting the victory at home. And so when I look at Bama, let me say this. Big picture, I think if you're a Bama fan, you have to be as excited as you possibly could be at this point in the season. Yeah, you don't want to blow a lead. We get that. But at the same time, I was thinking about this, right? Is you're coming off a year where you win the SEC championship. You have the coaching change. We've talked about it a million times. But here's my question, is that first off, on Sunday, they officially ascended to number 1 in the AP poll. Congrats to them. I know it doesn't matter if you're number 1 on September 29th versus January 29th, a couple of days after that national championship game, but it does matter. But what it also says to me, every goal that you would have had if Nick Saban was still your head coach is very much in play for Kalen DeBoer, right? Because I think coming into the season, and Bama fans, maybe you'll disagree, whatever. If you do, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with you. But I think there was a lot of thought of, well, it's year 1, and, if we don't make an SEC championship game, it's a 12-team playoff. Let's just get in the field. If we don't win it now, all of a sudden, tell me why Alabama can't be in Atlanta. Tell me why they can't be competing for an SEC title, why they can't compete for that probably the number 1 or number 2 overall seed in the 12-team playoff, a first-round bye, and competing as a true national champion. Because when I look at this team, a couple things. One, I think they're further along than we all thought they would be. You can argue, you could debate, but here's the bottom line. Jalen Milroe looks really freaking good, okay? 393 yards passing, I think was the final stat total from Saturday night. Let me make sure I have that correctly. 374 yards, so I apologize. So basically a 300-yard passing game, plus, of course, that deep pass to Ryan Williams to end the game. But Jalen Milroe has improved. This is a guy that through 4 games is completing 73% of his passes, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. He is better. Obviously, he has a difference maker in Ryan Williams at wide receiver. Unbelievable what Ryan Williams is doing. And what's crazy is how clutch this kid is. I did a reaction on Sunday night, but remember, the South Florida game, first of all, 2 touchdowns in his debut against Western Kentucky. The South Florida game, it was 21-16 in the fourth quarter. And Ryan Williams, yes, we know he's 17. He was the kid who made the play that really broke open the South Florida game. Had a great game against Wisconsin, deep touchdown pass, and he is the guy that makes the play in this game. So you have wide receiver 1. You have 2 great running backs in Jam Miller and Justice Haynes, and then the defense looks as good as you could have asked for. And so I know Georgia put up a lot of points and a lot of yards, but again, it was 2-minute offense. It was 4-down territory the entire second half. You're worn down by the end. I think this Alabama team has all the pieces needed to make a deep run in January. We always say that in March, right? Can they make a deep run in March? I think Alabama can do whatever they want in that 12-team playoff. I'd also add this. Just look at the schedule. Like I said, I think there's a lot of reason if you're excited to be a Bama fan. 1, not just because you're 4-0, but 2, look at how everything else is breaking out, right? We all think, and let's just work under the scenario that, maybe you don't win the SEC, maybe you don't get that number 1, number 2 overall seed, okay? Well, here's the bottom line. You're 4-0. You have a win over Georgia. So even if you get tripped up here, there, whatever, that win is going to carry weight, even if I think Georgia's maybe not quite as good as people think. But same time, you have a win that's going to carry weight. If you're 10-2 at the end of the year, if Georgia's 10-2 at the end of the year, guess what? First of all, you get to go to Atlanta. That's 1. And then 2, in the playoff committee's eyes, you are going to be perceived, as above Georgia because you beat them head to head. And beyond that, when I look at Alabama, here's what would have me excited if I was a Bama fan. Look at the schedule. This schedule that we thought was so daunting and so impossible back in June, July, August, it don't look so tough anymore, okay? You survived Georgia. This week you got Vandy. I know Vandy's improved. That's a win, right? We have to assume it's a win. South Carolina is improved, but they're coming to Bryant-Denny Stadium. I would expect a win there. And I will say, Tennessee does look like the one game. It's like, oh, Tennessee is really good. Now, Alabama's not used to losing to them. I know Alabama lost the last time they played in Knoxville. But Tennessee, to me, is as good as any team in college football this season that I have seen so far. But you get Missouri at home. All of a sudden, those road trips to LSU. I'm sorry, LSU does not look good to me. LSU looks very pedestrian. They look very beatable. We're seeing the impact that Jaden Daniels is having in the NFL and maybe the underrated impact he had at LSU last year, not to mention Malik Neighbors. And, oh, by the way, Oklahoma late in the year doesn't look as tough either because Oklahoma doesn't have a quarterback. Their O-line's beat up. Won't even talk about Auburn the final week of the season. Sorry, producer Matt, it's the truth. Going to stay away from Auburn. I bring it up because if you're an Alabama fan, you have to be excited. A season where I don't want to put a floor or a ceiling on what you thought, but now all of a sudden, this looks like an 11-1 type team. This looks like a team that can absolutely be in Atlanta. It looks like a team that can compete with anybody, and it looks like a team that could be a threat if and when they potentially make that 12-team playoff.